built, she completely lost her mind. And she was like, Chrissy, you're the smartest person I know. And I was like, hold on, I don't know any of the code behind this. I literally just talked to Claude and you can do it too. So for me, my AI workflow is that primarily I use something called Claude Code. And what I have discovered over talking to people over time is that people say, yes, I'm using AI. And I say, tell me your workflow. And then they say, well, so I take uh, all of the documents that I'm working with and I upload it to ChatGPT. And then from there, I work on it, and we go back and forth, and then I copy that code and then I put it back. And I'm curious if y'all can unmute. Um, is is that your current experience with AI? And if not, um, or I guess maybe we could have some hands or something like that. But I'm really curious for the people on the line if you are using the way that you're using it. Are you using GitHub Copilot with the command line and the agents and things like that? Or how does a classic workflow work? I guess anybody or maybe some hands. One person.
So for me, and
Thank
we're
you.
just getting into the Copilot stuff and kind of
Okay.
figuring it out, but I'm using it in other areas with it interactively between the different applications.
Okay, so primarily you stay on a website and it's web-based and it's not interacting with your computer.
Oh, it does computer and
It de-
everything we have on the network.
oh, awesome. Cool. Very cool. I was surprised that a lot of people, so that is the way that I use it and what I'll be talking about today. But the thing that is different about the way that you and I use it is that it, like she said, it interacts with the with your computer. It can run commands, it can run PowerShell, it can save files, and that's what we will be talking about today. And I this new website that I built is a really perfect. This was literally done in a day. And can I add other things? Yes. Is it just always a day? No. Like a lot of times, what I'll do is I will start and I'll have most of what I want. And then later on, it's the polishing. So let's talk about, for me, I was looking to find a home in The Hague and recently used AI to find exactly where I wanted to live. So, the problem, whenever you move to a new city, you always have to find the right neighborhood. And that is particularly challenging because some place could look really excellent on paper, and then you go there and the vibe is off, or you find that, maybe it's like more industrial. Like I genuinely thought that I would really love living in downtown in The Hague. I recently moved here from Brussels, and when I got downtown, I realized that it was too busy, even though it fit a lot of our criteria. So we have so many very specific things that we need that I don't think a lot of other couples need. I think that if you were to build a general website that wasn't personalized for you, it would probably have a lot of schools, for children and stuff like that. Or maybe they would build it for people who have multiple cars or easy ways to get around. But my wife and I, we only have one car and we have two cats, and she stays home with the cats. So we need a vet within walking distance in case there's some sort of emergency. She gets around entirely by foot. And also, she's the one who goes grocery shopping. And so she needs two different grocery stores nearby, because what we usually find is that one grocery store will have, the kind of cheese that you like, and then the other grocery store will have the kind of beer that you like, etc. So we always need two, and the more the better. Whenever we actually lived in southern Belgium, and we did share a car, but she would drop me off at work, and then we had 5 different grocery stores. Some place had like great beef bones, etc. So that's really important to us. And because she's walking, she also needs public transport within walking distance. And especially for The Hague and for the Netherlands, the rent needs to be reasonable. Unfortunately, the places that I really liked in The Hague, the rent for a 2 bedroom was going for 3,800 euros, which I guess is maybe like $4,300 at this time. I don't know what prices are like in America, but I do know in Brussels I was paying 2,600, and that was really pushing the limits for me. So to move to The Hague and suddenly it's 1,200 more was just a shocker for us. And it also has to be safe. And what we had found was that whenever we went and we looked, we were really excited about this 2,500 euro place. But we got there and we looked around and we're like, there's 2 liquor stores and they are broken into. And so, that's like really, I mean, we're used to living in big cities, but there are definitely pockets that are worse than others. And of course, plenty of restaurants. When we lived in southern Belgium, there were only 3 restaurants that we could go to. And so imagine by the 10th year, you're like, you want to go eat out? Oh God, we have to go there again. It was torture. So we have all of these requirements. So every time we'd like an area, we would pull up Google Maps, we would search for grocery stores, we would search for vets, we'd look for the bus stops, and we'd check the prices. And this was for every single neighborhood. So I figured, man, wait, I use AI. I can build an app for that. And I want to show y'all just how cool this app is. So that was loading. So we have this little screen, right? And over time, you can see all of the things that I needed here, right? So we have like grocery stores that we talked about, the trains, the public transportation. Actually, we had added in pharmacy, food, and vice, which I will get to momentarily, which is really exciting. And what was nice was that as I was building this, the first thing that I did was like I gave it the list, right? And then I was like, "Can you do that?" And it was as simple as asking, "Can you do that? Are there publicly available maps? Are there publicly available POIs?" And it said yes and yes. And so this all started coming together, and I was like, "Can you do this like Uber?" And so that's where you have this little top bar that, um, instead of having all of the food availability, it was specific to exactly what we needed. And then what I did was I gave it a score. I came up with an algorithm and worked with Claude going back and forth. And then I was able to easily go through and I could zoom in, and then I could see, well, this place looks really nice. And then if you double click on it, you can actually go to, I love this part. You can actually go to street view, right? So you can immediately get the vibe. You can see that it's green, and then you can get a better vibe of what it looks like. Like this place isn't so bad if we go there. I really love the Dutch streets. I think there's some of the coolest things. It just makes it look like very clean. So this is a nice, clean little neighborhood. Doesn't have too much personality. And then what we could also do is from there, we could immediately see, we could also see the food that's available because this was something that was so important to us. So we could go through and look. A lot of times we look for Mexican. It's very hard to come across here. But that was a lot of times high on our list. And maybe if I was continuing to develop this app, I would actually add a Mexican restaurant store score, but that would probably be for if I was looking across all of Europe and where I would want to potentially want to potentially live. But another thing that was really cool is that, oh well, I ends up that I really do like this area, so let's go see what it looks like nearby. Now, I will say it is really challenging because all of these companies really like to keep their information private. I can add in an API, and that would be as easy as asking, but I would also have to sign up for a service, and I really did want to keep this for free. So I could go there, I have everything that I want. And then what's really nice is that we could look at the vets, right? Because that was important. So even though this is green, it's actually extra green because we have this little vet here. And then we have, let's see what else we like. Oh, we have all of these grocery stores, and then we even have little convenience stores. So this looks like a really excellent area that we would probably like. And what I love is the vice. And I'll cover that momentarily in a future slide. But let's keep it in mind. Let's look at the vices. So if we take off the vets and the grocery, we could see that, oh, is that the same area? That they have like quite a bit of vices. And you might wonder what's a vice. We'll get to that momentarily. But if you look down at the bottom, here we have, I even was able to get the rent. Can you get the rent? Can you look at the rent prices around there? Because I can fall in love with an area, but then again, I have to go and I have to pull up the information, and then I have to look to see the rents that are available. So let's talk about the way that I built this app. So I started with a prompt in Claude Code. I don't know if you've ever seen Claude Code, but it has multiple things that are available. It has a desktop that's available. It has VS Code, but I wanted to make this presentation approachable to the widest audience. I spend my time in the CLI and I spend my time in VS Code, but I also really want executives and project managers and the widest audience available to be able to use this. And what was really great was that Anthropic and other companies that are building this AI software, they're building it to make it a lot more approachable and easy. So this only used to be in VS Code and the command line, and now it's just on your desktop. So you could see this prompt here later on as I was developing this. I had a friend who was like, yes, I would like to use your app, but I would like to add it I would like to see the schools that are available. And I was like, Christos, you can just check it out. This is what you would do. Please add schools to the data set. Look up the primary language because it was important for him. We live in an international city, and the school that he ends up on may not speak the language that his children speak. So then you go and you say add a button at the top, but also when I click on the school, I want a little info card and the details. And what you can see here is that it's very surprising how easy this can become. If you want it, you just type in plain English. And right here, you could see the see GitHub Hakehouse. This is interacting with my local machine. So the prompt was exactly what you saw before, right? You take that slideshow and you just put it in there. Hey, Claude. And I do actually start a lot of my prompts with Hey, Claude, because it helps me speak to it more naturally. And I just find it more effective. So we're looking to buy a house in The Hague, but we have very specific requirements. We only have one car, so my wife needs to be within walking distance, and so on and so on. And so this is, I think what surprises people is that they expect me to be writing lines of code as I'm working with AI. And I will tell you, I have a lot of public projects. I have a lot of private projects, and I haven't written a line of code in months. AI is doing it all for me, and I'm not the only one. It was a bit of a relief to see Claude Code itself is 100% written by Claude, and this has become a trend that's increasingly common. So at the end of this, at the end of my requirements, I wanted to know, literally, is it possible to map all of this out in a web app using free maps and points of interest data? And you might say, Chrissy, I've heard this before. This is the second time you're saying it, and it's true. It's because what I found was as I was creating this presentation, it was all things that I was eventually just going to say to Claude anyway. So then once Claude said yes, I said, oh, really? Go and get these data sets. You have access to my computer. So go and get it, download every single grocery store, every vet, bus stop, train station, restaurant in The Hague. Save them as data files that I can use. And while you're at it, can you also get the rent prices for a 2-bedroom and the sale prices for homes and apartments? Because I hadn't decided what I wanted to see. Now that you have all of that, can you build me a map showing all of that data as different colored points? I want to be able to toggle each of the category, almost like Uber Eats. And what I found was that that was actually the wrong prompt, right? Because it had, well, it had the colored pins, but initially I asked it for green, but then I also asked it for like red, and then that just wasn't so smart. I think that's actually my next slide. Yeah. So this is the Vice slide. Figure out what makes Stationsburg, where I had went to that I went and I saw that apartment, and I didn't like the area it had, and I was like, I think it's liquor stores, but I don't know. Tell me the difference between Stationsburg and the place around the Hilton, because I love Z Street where the Hilton is, but I felt really sketched out where Stationsburg was, and then score every neighborhood on the map based on my requirements, including the vices. And we had to kind of go back and forth with the vices, right? First, it figured out what the vices were, and that really surprised me, because, first of all, it was clustered. Now, these all have to be in combination, which was also interesting. Clustered, quick, easy loans. Uh, but fast food places were actually surprising to me. And then you also had, we have casinos here. So there was casinos, there was also erotic shops. And then over here, drugs are legal to some extent, and they sell them at places called coffee shops, which is very misleading. And so we have, all of these things put together. And it's not that, like, initially I was like, all right, map out those vices, and then I couldn't live anywhere in The Hague. And I said, what happened? And I was like, well, there's a liquor store across the way. And yeah, but I'm not interested in a single liquor store. Let's come up with what's the difference between Stationsburg and the Hilton. So we actually decided that it was 9 vices within 500 meters. So this is what it looks like whenever it's planning. Initially, it will go through, it will plan it all out. It will find out all of its data sources the same way that we actually do, and it will write. It'll go into plan mode, and then it'll actually write to your hard drive. And this is what it looks like. It provides you the information. You can approve it. And I was actually at another conference earlier, and I was like, man, I just like, a lot of times I vibe too hard, and I YOLO my vibes. I don't really pay attention to the plans. What's important to me is that it spent a lot of time actually thinking about it, and then I'll go back. And I have wasted time doing that. It would serve me better to read the plans, but there's only sometimes that I do. So it was really nice is that it built it all out for me, but I wanted to know, and I was really excited, and I figured that the answer was yes, but could it have a blue dot that follows us like in Google Maps so that we could see exactly where we are, and then we can map everything out? And then I wanted it to be a cute little icon on my phone. And that's where I learned about something called PWA, or progressive web apps. It allows you to run things mostly locally, but it also, for this specific web app, allows you to download and cache all of your maps. So that's what I asked it for. Then once it was done, I wanted a search bar that had all of the neighborhoods so I could jump straight to. As a matter of fact, whenever I presented this to a colleague yesterday, he was like, I want to look up my neighborhood. And he was able to use the little search in the corner. So I was really, really excited whenever I saw the output, and I just couldn't wait to show my wife. And so I was like, hey, this is amazing, but where can I put it? Because I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to pay for my hosting. But I want it to be available on our phone. So it actually hooked me up. It suggested GitHub pages or Cloudflare pages. And I have used GitHub pages a lot. And I wanted to try the ecosystem of Cloudflare, and that's where we have hagehouse.pages.dev. So I put the slides on there. So I shipped it. And what was so cool is that when you do this, it just works. It just goes through when you're using AI. This is agentic AI, which has access to your computer, and that is just so powerful. And it just works so many times, just right off. That being said, I do use Opus 4.6, and I pay um, because I use AI a lot. I do have something called the Max model, which gives me a lot of tokens. But this is all possible for as little as 20 a month. And that's actually what I started out with. But then I got really addicted and I kept bumping it up each month. I will say this. What I do whenever, even if I do want the 200, and even if I know that I will use the 200 between all of us, what I do is I start out with the 100 and then I reach my weekly max because you do have, so you have a 4 hour, 5 hour window. That's a max, which I never really reach, but I do reach my weekly max. But what I'll do is I'll pay that 100 and then I'll hit that weekly max and then I'll just up my subscription and it goes all the way back to the beginning. And then I have my week is set over, set reset. And if I would have done that, from the very beginning, I would have lost about a day's worth of tokens that I get by doing that two-parter. And Anthropic makes it very easy. So whenever you approve it, it executes everything. And what this is actually different. Whenever you see the update to-dos, creating the schools and fetching the script, and then it goes and it gets the JSON, and then it interacts with it. Apparently, this project uses TypeScript, which I literally didn't even know. And then it goes by. It's really nice because over time, when you work with AI, most of the things that you'll be doing is context management. And even these to-do lists, they have agents that'll go out and they'll just report back. Instead of filling up the memory of your current session, you have all of these other little agents that have their own little memories that they throw away and then report back. So over time, this is getting more and more efficient for your usage of tokens. So I love it. 7 prompts, 0 code written by me, 1 real working app, and 1 day is all it took. Now, I know that this sounds really nice and this can happen. What you're going to get after 7 prompts isn't anything perfect, but it is absolutely something that is enough to keep your dopamine going. And for me, I love Claude Code because I can just keep prompting it without care and without thought of my token usage. But when I use GitHub Copilot, and I do, they have premium requests, and you really have to pack in as much as you want, and you have to, as much as you need, and you have to think through your prompt and all that you need because you only get a certain number of premium requests. If you get the Pro Plus plan, you get 1,500 requests. So that's 1,500 times that you can call Claude. If you're using a premium model such as Opus, then that will be 3 times the amount. So you get 500 calls. And what I found was that it introduced a bit of anxiety. But Copilot was actually especially useful right before Opus 4.6 came out because Anthropic, and this is very common across the board, when you have a company such as OpenAI or Anthropic that are releasing new models, they will take the compute away from you and everyone else in the pool, and they'll put it towards the new model and deploying the new model and training the new model. And so at the beginning, whenever a model is first released, that's going to be the best time ever. So right now, you guys actually all caught me on a coding bender because it is Claude Code 4.6, sorry, Opus 4.6 came out just maybe like 5 or 6 days ago. So I am trying to do as many things as I can, because right now is the highest quality time. And now later on, it's variable. What I have found is when you use Microsoft Foundry, which powers GitHub Copilot, on the days that Claude Code sucks, Copilot always stays the same quality. Um, Overall, they have a smaller context window, but it which might make it seem not as useful, but there are times when it is when what you want is that smaller context window. I'll give you an example. I wanted to, sometimes within the DBA tools, uh, 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 GitHub repo, we'll get an issue that says, I'm trying to run your command against my case sensitive SQL Server and it's failing. And that's because we all do case insensitive, and our CI pipeline is also case insensitive. So what I wanted to do, I want to go through every single command and file in our repository that has T-SQL, and I just wanted to fix the case. So I got the reference file with all the proper casing, and then I executed against that. And I said, hey, for this file, make sure that it aligns with this casing. And Claude Code was so smart, and it wanted to do so much more while it was at it. It was like, this prompt, this is just too easy. I don't want to just do this. I even tried their least intelligent model called Haiku, which is still extremely intelligent, and still it wanted to do too much. And the one that ended up working almost right out the gate was when I used Copilot, because when you want surgical precision like that, and you don't need that big architectural change, then GitHub Copilot is perfect. And I do get 1,500 calls each month, and I use them every single month, even though I also have Claude Code. So one more thing. The presentation that you're looking at, it's not PowerPoint. I just actually asked Claude Code to do it. It's HTML. And I think that this might be what I'll just start doing in general all the time, because it's so portable, and that's just so nice. And also, I have been busy, and this is something I'm really excited to share, y'all. I'm working on a module called Le Lab, and this is a lab that will build out a huge enterprise SQL Server environment with clusters and with named instances and with Windows auth only, then another one with mixed mode, this other one with availability groups. Like, I want every sort of mix and match. And so the lab, I will be publishing it once I'm more advanced with it. But something that I'm doing is that I'm going to have it installed Northwind and Pubs, or there's a Stack Overflow 10 gig database. And it is a module that is intended for SQL Server developers who want to test their modules against these enterprise mimicking kind of environments. But as I was explaining this to my friend Brandon, he was like, can you, like, wait, what? So you used Warp? And I was like, yeah, I just asked Claude, hey, Claude, I want to be able to contact my machine at home, which is a monster that can run this lab. Can you, I like Cloudflare, and I think that they have like this zero trust solution. Can you install it for me? So it went and it did all of that for me, right? So that's one thing that's cool, is because you can give Claude Code access to your command line, you can have it build something like this that is live, that works. This is a real, true snapshot of my entire topology. And the way that it got that was by using Hyper-V PowerShell commands. And it used regular get, test net connection built-in PowerShell commands. It used the Cloudflare command line. It used probably some DOS commands I saw in there. So it went through And then what was really great is that I said, you could present this to Brandon in any way that you want. I just need him to see the information. You can use balsamic markups if you know how to do that. I don't have Visio, so skip that. And also don't use Mermaid because I don't like Mermaid output. And I love telling Claude Code to use HTML and CSS, even if you want a picture of something. Like if you have a blog post and you want to generate a social card, nowadays OpenAI has been pretty good about, and Nano Banana from Google has been pretty good. They can make really nice social cards. But in general, when you want more control, it's so much easier to say, like, change that line, and Claude or Copilot is changing just some HTML instead of regenerating the entire image. So this was just so impressive to me that it went through, it got the domain. Like, I didn't tell it anything. It just read the code, and then it logged into my Hyper-V lab, and it gathered all of this information. It was able to gather like the CPUs. It said that this one's the SSH server. So this is actually the lab that I built. And I do a lot of work off of Workstation, which has SSMS and SSH, which is cool because on my host machine, I can open up Visual Studio Code and connect into there. And then, I mean, this is just so cool. And what I loved about this was that I showed my friend who's a network administrator. He said, "What? You did that in Claude?" And I was like, "Haven't you been using Claude?" And he was like, "Yeah, but I just like type into the box." And I was like, "No, you need to execute things locally on your hard drive." And again, with the YOLO, um, I do isolate it most of the time within a container. So I have a lot of dev containers, but in this case, I do need to run as administrator, but the machine that it's on is dedicated solely to development. And so I YOLO quite a lot. Cross my fingers, and if it if it all gets deleted, I'll just find it somewhere online again to download. So this is what it looks like. Then it explained everything, looked really cool. And then, it has the benefits. It was really cool. It was that um my friend that I showed this to, he was like, "How do I mean, can it adjust for my network?" And I said, "Ask it." But the answer is yes, of course it can. So far, there has been nearly nothing that it hasn't been able to do. Like, if I get a data set with POIs that doesn't have the schools, it'll literally go and find another data set and then smash that all together. So yeah, this is what dbatools is going to be tested against. I love this thing. I have so much fun on it. But that's just one website that I rebuilt in a day. Another one that I was so proud of is dbatools. And the first thing that I wanted that didn't have before was dark mode. And what's really nice is even this right here, right? So I said, hey, on the front page, I don't know if y'all had seen, just for 10 years, maybe more, I had the same website. And whenever AI came around and it started doing really awesome things, I was like, wait, I can actually rebuild the entire site. Before, DBA Tools was on WordPress and it was always getting hacked. And in 2020, I migrated it to Hugo, or actually it was to GitHub Pages, but it was static. And I was so exhausted and just forever. I was like, oh man, that's such a huge task. And me and Kai Sauter, we both tried to reapproach it and do it in Hugo, but then I just had to learn another platform, and that was exhausting. So whenever I realized that Claude Code was so powerful, I had it go through and I gave it the raw, nasty HTML. And I said, hey, for all of this, export it to Markdown files and then rebuild the DBA Tools website. I really like the vibe of cursor.ai. And I want it to kind of look like that. Like, I want this time around, I want it to be geared towards users instead of the beginners, because now we have a larger community, and they want more from the site. And so I wanted to be able to speak to them like very quickly. And yeah, going through here, I said, can you make the front page look like it's animated? And this is JavaScript. Like, I didn't want to take a picture. I didn't want to do all that stuff. So one of the coolest things about it is that I also used it to upgrade my blog or update my blog, and it can look at an image. And instead of having that, like back in 2015, PowerShell looked a lot different. And if you go to my blog, you're like, oh, this is definitely a dated blog post. But now what I do is I just have a little PowerShell partial where it always looks like this, which looks pretty modern. And this one is animated, which I love. Very proud of that part. And something else that was cool was that I told Claude, um, there was someone who came by the website, and they were very, so first they were really excited because they heard so much about DBA tools, and then they get to the website and they're like, I don't know what to do with DBA tools because you just have like some slogans and logos. And I was like, I know, because I'm a developer and not like not a web designer, not a web person. I just like did what I could at the time. One moment. So he had created an issue, and I very much appreciated it because it showed um, what our site was lacking at the time. And I sent Claude to the issue, and I told it, I want to make things immediately more more useful so that the person has a better idea, better visual of what we can do for them. So actually, Claude did this for me, and I loved it. I think that it had probably come up with maybe a couple others, maybe like get DBA database, but that's not, nobody really cares about that. Like, I'm glad you can see the database, but let's do something with the database. And all of these are like action commands. They're awesome. And then this right here, look at this. You jump right into, like, it even fixed the flow of my information to the user. And so and what I use, by the way, is the word best practice over and over again. I want landing page best practice. I want UX UI best practice. I want getting started best practice. And I love the getting started. I'll be showing you that in a moment. It added this by itself, which is so cool. I was like, oh my God, I never even thought to do that. We wrote DBA tools in a month of lunches because people asked for it and they want to know more about getting into it. And I was like, oh, it's, first of all, this is beautiful. Second of all, it's just so cool that it put it there. It looked good right off the bat. And Claude is absolutely incredible. And you can get it on Amazon. You could go get some more details. I loved another thing that I did, by the way, when I had done that migration from WordPress to GitHub. Suddenly it became static because it was all HTML. I couldn't add to the site anymore. I was really sad. So I added to blog.netnerds.net, and in the interim, that's what I was using it for. But whenever I built the new site, I literally told Claude, hey, go to netnerds.net, get everything that's related to DBA tools, and then just migrate it over. So that was something that was really cool. And it's just literally one prompt, which is magical. You could go to view all articles. This is really cool. So very exciting. Something else that I want to show you is the getting started. I mean, this was immediately catching for me. It's like, oh, like I was really excited to read through it because it answered so many questions that I would have of a tool set right off the bat. Your first 5 minutes, what? And this, by the way, is best practices for the getting started guide. And you go through, it explains it. Where should you install? I did prompt it for this. I let it know. I think that it had maybe actually said that that you want to install it on your SQL server. And I was like, whoa, whoa. I do have to say, I'm kind of cracking up a bit because I see the little video of me down in the background. And as y'all noticed, I had been caught off guard because I was caught up. But my little hair scrunchie is actually a medical mask because I had one of those laying around, but I didn't have a thing to put my hair up in. So thought that was funny. So yeah, we have the good places to install. And then we get to add in some best practices here, like don't install on your production SQL server. And here's your quick install. The same execution policy often throws a lot of people off. And so that was nice for it. Ooh, and then I was like, hey, can you put a little copy command? So that's really nice that I get to do that. And this is me just literally asking, can you do this? Yes. And it talks about the learning approach. So I am not coming up with the content here. I am guiding it with the words best practices. This was something that was really amazing. So with the old page, on the left was just 700 commands. It was incredibly hard to navigate. And I was like, wait, now that I have AI, I literally had a conversation with Claude and I said, I have so many commands. I need your help with the information architecture. How do I make it easier for our users to find the command that they needed? And it came up with this, and it was very beautiful. I loved it. And oh, even this just is so, so nice. It looks beautiful. I love how like big the words are. Like it just, I think that I did tell it. If there's a site, Microsoft has had to have they just put so much money into, A/B testing, what looks great, how do things work. So, I'll say go to learn.microsoft.com, etc., so that it has like an idea. But I mean, this is so nice over here too. um, you can go through even that part is easy to access, which is so impressive to me. So sorry, let's go all the way up here. But to be able to, I need something on log shipping. And it's just so much easier, or you can go here and it just looks quite nice. And I do like that we have like the popular commands. This is actually based off of, we don't have telemetry in DBA tools, but we do have web statistics. So based off of how many people came to it. So these are either the most popular because they're the hardest to use and people need to refer to them, like find DBA instance, which is quite hard to use, or um, oh, I'm so sorry. Or it's because they are the highest used, and so people want to come and they want to see a nice website. Also, with the SQL builds, SQL Server 2025 recently came out, and I needed this top bar to be redesigned. And then it was so nice. It just threw in this export right there. And I was like, oh, I appreciate that. So this page, which with its awesome filtering, is as a result of a conversation, just like with the commands, because we really needed to work out how to make it easier to use, because I didn't want just a one-on-one. I kind of wanted a redesign in general. And did this take a day? No, it took longer than a day, but it's because I'm a perfectionist, and I take so much joy. This is the funnest thing in the world to me. So I really enjoyed like fixing each of the little things. Um, Something else, I really hope that GitHub ends up allowing us to change this. Uh, I would like to be able to go straight to the repo and kind of talk from there. But if you do use DBA tools, this is an extremely effective way to explore our code base. I'm very impressed by Copilot and its ability to give accurate information because it's looking at the code, and they did a really good job with this. So yeah, I like this little button. I do, this is, it's kind of forced in, but Claude helped me with that too until GitHub natively supports that. And then of course, using, I need a dark theme and a light theme. I want it to look, it's mostly based after GitHub because I like theirs. And then with the team, this was really cool. So we have our core maintainers. Oh, it redid all of this, which is nice. But we have our core maintainers, and I didn't want to show preference for any singular person. So what I told Claude to do was put in um, a refresher. Sorry, that it just rotates through. So anytime that you go to it, it'll be me plus the others. And oops, I just hit a rate limit. So I have one more website that I want to show you. This one was one of the most mind-blowing website experiences that I had. So I literally SSH'd into my VPS, and I had a Linux thing there, so I installed Claude. And then I said, Claude, I have this site runs rocajunrecipes.com. I want to get it off of WordPress. I'm tired of getting hacked. I'm tired of being stressed out all the time. And so what I would like you to do, and now this is complex, we have content types that are unusual for recipes. So I need you to dig deep. Where are you going to get this information? You figure it out if you want to use the WordPress API. If you want me to install WP, which is the WordPress command line, that was actually it, by the way. You figure out the username and password. You do all of that. What I ultimately want, I want you to export the recipes. I want you to export the authors. I want you to export all of the parts. And so, and then, I did tell it eventually, I want to actually have themes. So right now it's about to be Mardi Gras. And so we have a Real Cajun recipe book for that. And then I wanted the collection of all of the recipes that are in that cookbook. So this is what we eat around Mardi Gras, which has like Lent and stuff like that. Oops, look what I did. I messed this up. I need to fix that. Hold up. Let me see if a refresh helps. And if not, then I need to fix it. So then we went through, and it was so nice for this. I mean, look at that, how awesome. Erath, Vermilion Powers. So you could see exactly the Cajun town that this recipe came from. And I did have it help with clarification. We wrote it for Cajuns, but we have people from all across America that come to our website. So we helped, there were a lot of assumptions that maybe people would know what crawfish were or something like that. So I used it for clarification, but I also used it to categorize. So you have, that this recipe is beginner. It also derived how many servings there would be. So yeah, our food isn't pretty, but but it's sure delicious. It came up with this little our cookbook. So hey, if you want real Cajun recipes, you could go and grab a cookbook, and those are all from my little hometown. I was able to ask you, we have so many little Alphonses like this that my best friend had drawn. So I was like, can you change out the little Alphonses, maybe with each page load. But something else that was really cool is this. So I have this little Easter egg where you can go and you could see each of the themes. So whenever Thanksgiving came around, this was actually my favorite one. Whenever Thanksgiving came around, then it changes it all to the Thanksgiving theme, and changes the color and the little highlights. The recipes, I was able to get it exactly like I wanted it. Like I wanted these little cards for the website. And for popular, oh, look at that. That's so cute. I think that no, yeah, that was an old one that we had. It came up with these little things, our community's most loved Cajun classics, which I liked. It ranked them. This is impossible for me to do by myself. And so it was really awesome to ask Claude. And what I did was it had its first suggestions weren't the best suggestions in the world, but we were able to work together, and I have never been more proud of this website. I've had it since 2002. I was the original. I did all the HTML, and like Brandon did all of the graphics. And that was very challenging for me because I'm a developer more than I am a designer. But in this way, I'm kind of a designer now, which is really nice. You can even log in with this. Like I asked it, can I have people log in and without me having a database in the background? And it said, yeah, you're behind Cloudflare. I could do one of those one-time passwords. And I was like, what? We even migrated people's old recipes. So now we have this completely interactive site that is not hackable because it's all static pages that use services like Cloudflare, which is really awesome. I like Cloudflare. Um, I'm sure that there's other services. It's something. It was one of the first things that I had signed up for years and years and years ago, and they've just since added a lot of things. They have databases. Microsoft definitely offers things like this, but it was just easier to download these little npm things. I didn't do it, Claude did, but from when I was watching Claude do all of this, it was easier. One more thing, actually, probably like two, because I am very proud of this. So I said, man, AI is a language machine, right? And I've always wanted real Cajun recipes. So if y'all don't know, the Cajuns are from Louisiana. It's Southwest Louisiana, and then the Creoles are from Southeast Louisiana. So that's like New Orleans versus Lafayette. So I'm from the Lafayette area, and we all speak French. Well, um, our parents speak French, and our grandparents speak French, but for the most part, our generation does not. And it's a very sad story. And what was really nice is that I was able to tell that story by adding this. So we actually don't offer Cajun French translations because a language machine requires patterns, and ours is it's an oral language and not written down. So while I could pretend to offer Cajun French, it wouldn't be complete and it wouldn't be accurate. But what I was able to do was use this opportunity to tell people about the cultural suppression of the Cajuns, that we were beaten for speaking French in school. My mom was literally beaten for speaking French in school. I her mom I don't think went to school in America, but it was nice that I was able to take that opportunity and work with Claude to tell our story. And if people are interested in this, but what's really awesome also is that we have it in Francois. And so and I actually passed it by. I don't know if y'all know Isabel she's a SQL Server MVP and a SharePoint person from Belgium. And I passed this by her and I was like, how is it? She's like, looks good. And I was really excited about that. So, I mean, if you go through all of this, it's in French. So let's see, hold on. And I think that I must have to do my cache. So yeah, it's all in French here. And then we go to, I don't know why it looks different like that. It's probably because I vibe too hard. Oh, there we go. Or maybe that's just the way that it looked. So you could see here that now it says it in Makshu is the same in Cajun French. And so it'll say Makshu on there. But this is boudin balls. And then uh the Cajuns, so we're French. We came from Canada and we were kicked out of Nova Scotia in 1755. Only half of us made it out alive. And we went down the coast of America down to Louisiana. And before that, we were in French, but in France. But so I also added Quebecois, so that the Quebecois could, come here and get a little, it's very interesting seeing the similarities, because I do go to Canada a bit, and I love it because I'm like, oh my God, y'all have like your equivalent of steamed syrup. You have the same thing. And there's so many, you can actually, when looking at the food, I could see a lot of similarities there. So that actually covers all of the things that I wanted to show you. With that, was this built in a day? No. Was it, could I put it, was it available on the internet in a day? Could it have been? Yes. Did I perfect it over time? Absolutely. I would say that I worked on Real Cajun recipes maybe for 2 weeks straight, and DBA tools maybe for a week straight. But each of them immediately, because it keeps you addicted, right? There was immediate feedback. And so whenever my advice for redoing your website is get as creative as you can get, because anything that you ask of it is probably possible. Something that I did was, I also use CLI to, and by the way, if you have a ChatGPT subscription, the equivalent of Claude Code and GitHub Copilot, is called Codex. And you can use that. For me, I kept my blog up to date. Oh, this was actually made by ChatGPT. Well, not ChatGPT. I created something that I need to release, but it is a social media card maker that looks at the content of the page that's open and then creates a social card for it. And so I actually use this. I've been having this blog since 2006. And of course, a lot of it's outdated, right? So I went page by page or post by post, and I had GitHub Copilot update it. And the things were like, if it's changed, um uh then mark it that, this is no longer the way that we do it. Or if the web page is no longer available, then check the wayback machine to see if that's available. So it went through, and it just cleaned up a lot of the things that had just kind of been weighing on me, because some people had actually talked about removing their blog posts from the internet. And I didn't want to do that, but I also didn't want to deliver outdated information. And I was able to use AI to update and do that. And I remember Katrin Williamson, so I probably butchered her last name. She was very concerned whenever she saw my post, because she was like, I don't want to change the content. But when she saw the actual changes that it made against her post, she was happy, because it didn't change the voice. It just changed like the very practical things. Like it'll have a little banner at the top that says, this information is no longer updated. So you can go to my blog and see the kinds of things that I am doing for with websites. And then also I do tell the story of how the first one, it wasn't based on Notepad in design, but I created dbatools.io, the website, because I wanted to reach a more general audience than PowerShell and GitHub themselves do. So if I made it approachable for most people by using a website the same way that Notepad did, then more people would possibly use it, and it seemed to be a very effective method. So that concludes my presentation. I hope that it was useful, and I am extremely open to talk to anybody about this right now. And if you have any questions, I would be very excited to hear them.
Thank you so much, Chrissy. That was fantastic. So much information. I have a question. I don't know about anybody else.
All right.
Questions.
Ask away.
So like I think earlier I talked about, we use it to search network stuff and incorporate things, but I don't use it as much. I use it a little bit with coding, but my stuff's more like from an architecture standpoint and stuff. So I'm curious, like where we can get more information, because I know you had mentioned when you were talking to your network guy, like, oh, he was using the box and he needs to be using it in in Visual Studio. Um, so where can we get more information? Because I know when I've tried to use it for coding tasks, and I don't know if this is a language problem, like I've chosen the wrong language that Copilot just is not good at, or
Yeah.
if it is a user prompting issue. So where's some information that I can do to start more on the path of using it in like GitHub and stuff like that?
Um, I am so sorry at this exact moment. My earbuds just died. Give me one moment while I swap out to my other earbuds. I'm very addicted to these things. And on this
I
way.
can't
Can
hear
you
you.
hear me?
Now
Oh,
again,
you
yeah.
can't. Yes, awesome. Perfect. Okay. So the answer to that is I do not know. I I found like initially with GitHub, are you talking about GitHub Copilot specifically? Okay.
What we
Um,
use, we're required to not use other things. So,
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. And that is actually the most often used thing. Um, for me, I was at an AI tour in that Microsoft put on for free in Paris. It was so awesome. It was at the Louvre, and GitHub Copilot actually had a presentation there, and I was really excited. And then I went, and they were speaking French, and I was like, ah, but I could kind of follow along with what they were doing.
mm,
And it was still, I went in there because I'm like, can you please tell me how to use this? And I left thinking, I still don't know how to use it. And I did bring it up as an issue to GitHub that it's
sure.
just hard to use. That being said, when you put it in agent mode, that is essentially Claude code and the way that I work with it, right?
Okay. Agent
And
mode.
if
That's good though.
yeah, and so if you have a corporate account, that is awesome because then you probably aren't limited by the number of premium calls that you can make. And that means that you can practice, right? So
Mm,
I've been doing this since 2023. I used to copy before these command line or agentic coding things were available. I used to literally copy and paste the code back and forth. Um, and so I've been doing this a long time, and I have to say I have not found any tutorial that is effective as one, honestly, like reading, following, I follow Reddit subreddits like chat gpt coding, it's called. It's not necessarily just chat gpt, but the claude ai things, and watching other people work with it and seeing the way that they use things. I'm like, oh man, I keep hearing about hooks. I should probably look into hooks. And so ultimately I think that you are very lucky. You're in a good position to literally just type all the time and learn it by practicing.
mm,
Um, because so far reading about it without the actual practicing is a bit harder. But what you can also do is message me and tell me about your current project that you're working on. And
mm,
then, because that's what I did with my friend, I was like, tell me what you're working on, and I can tell you. And so many times he was like, what? You can actually do that? And you know what was so awesome is that he gave Claude my my pretty little lab diagram, and then I said, tell Claude about your project and then give it your numbers, right? Like what's it, not
mm,
numbers, your ip addresses or whatever. So he was telling Claude about it, and then Claude said, would you like me to change the color theme to military green? And I was like, what? Like that's so, I was so impressed. And he was like, yes. And so then he sent me a screenshot, and I was like, dude, that looks like Metal Gear Solid. It looked really cool. But it adapted that entire thing. And that's another thing, by the way, if you like something, the best thing to do is to show it. I like this, and this is why I like that. So I told it I like the new developer um the new developer websites because they're geared towards developers. And I did have a complaint, against dbatools.io about that. So I would like to work within, that context. And with Real Cajun recipes for the little cards, I used regular Claude to tell me about some beautiful websites. I've always been jealous of large firms that can make incredible looking websites. And
Mm.
now I could just be like, I like that recipe card from there, but I like the way that this, two like $10 million site I like the way that they display their recipes. So for me, I just borrow a lot from the things that I enjoy. When it came to that really cool lab thing that it built, that was all Claude. And I do find sometimes what I'll do is I'll give it one prompt in one window and I'll let it have no guidance from me, and then I'll give it guidance and I'll see which one I like. And it's a
Oh,
toss up all the time which one I will enjoy.
awesome. I'm going to see if anybody else has questions because I have one more, but I don't want to dominate. So,
Dominate, girl.
I will say I did get a feedback from someone who had to drop because they had a meeting at 1.
Uh-huh.
And John said that he loved the session and he is very excited to look at Claude, and thank you so much for presenting on this. So I wanted to make sure I
Awesome.
passed that message along.
absolutely.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. This is the really the first time that I've presented it. I am trying to convince a large swath of people at work to to figure out how we can get Claude Code integrated into our environment. Um, and so this is actually going to be one of the things that I surprised. And like we do sprints, and I have to go uh, down to the office to participate in the sprint. So at the very end, I'll be like, I actually have something that I would like to show everybody. Do we have an extra 10 minutes? And then I'm going to pop this on them. And then hopefully they'll get excited and see. And then, because what I want is for not just me to know about this. If everyone can be this powerful, then I think what we'll do is we will all work together to ensure that this somehow gets integrated into our workflow. I was really excited. My best friend, Brandon, I showed him how to use this, and it's been a long time since we've coded together. We used to live right by each other in California, but then I moved away, and we talk every day, but we don't really code at the same time. And I'm really excited because he's like, man, this is so unusual for him. He said, I'm so annoyed because real life gets in the way, and my husband wants me to go hiking, and I don't want to go hiking. I just want to do Claude Code. And I'm like, me too. I have to go walking, and I just want to do this all day. And so yeah, it's warning. I have never been addicted to anything before, and this might ruin my life at some point because it's just so good. It's so fun. Everything that I want, I can make. I make Windows apps for myself. Nobody would want this dumb little Windows app, right? We made an iPhone app for Real Cajun recipes. I make Visual Studio Code extensions all the time for little tasks that I want to do that nobody else would want to do. And so, yeah, I call it, well, somebody else had coined the term a project a day, and it really is. I build tools to make me more productive, and this productivity is absolutely addicting. Be careful. Yep. You have a second question?
Yeah. And you may or may not have an answer. So putting my architect hat on,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
had mentioned about having it finding data sets and pulling it in and doing different things. So I'm wondering, do you think that's a potential, like thinking in the terms of like SQL injection and things like that?
Oh,
Do you think that's
100%.
a potential
Yes.
security hole?
100%. It has been done. Um, and currently, So I do all of this. This is all personal stuff that I'm doing. If I were to ever have anything that was in production, and I do with DBA tools, right? I always have with DBA tools, I always have somebody else look at my code. And I also look at every single PR that comes through. I look at it, but this is a known issue. There are ways to do guardrails, and and I think that what you could do is have a guardrail that it's only .gov sites, and then the because that's actually where I got all of my data points were all from .gov sites except for the rent. The rent came from a corporation called Funda, where we all like go and look for to rent or buy. I do want to say this to you as an architect. I want to give you one more example of the way that I use things. So there's GitHub Copilot. I don't completely know the ecosystem, although like I am in love with the CLI. I love it. And I am in because they also have a free tier. You could literally run it all day at the command line. So I think what I'll probably do if I ever have like a Linux machine, I'll just make Copilot my shell and then just run it all the time. Um, but with Claude, it has something called skills. And in the past, it used to be that it was expected that everybody would have a finely tuned model, right? So you take your stuff. Problem with fine tuning is that it's long-term memory. And if you did those vector stores or whatever, then that would be short-term memory, right? And from there, they realized that the short-term memory was more effective, um, and from there, they kind of started building this framework. And out of that, we had Claude.md, which is our agents.md, where you put all, and you could go to the DBA tools repo and see what we say. Like that's all of our our coding rules. Um, but with skills, uh, skills is the next step in, at least with the Claude ecosystem. And let's say that I am a systems engineer and it is my job to create um, Jira dashboards, right? I'm a systems engineer and like I deploy it, but then my boss comes and says, "Hey, we actually want you to go a step further, and we want you to create our dashboard." I'm like, "Oh man, I'm gonna have to go like learn Jira and this and then this." What I would do instead is I would actually create skills, and I would and the way that you do that, by the way, is to say is to give Claude the URL to the Claude skills best practice, and then you have a research. If you ever saw deep research on Chat GPT or whatever, I would do a deep research on Jira dashboards best practices, and then I would say create a skill based off of these Jira dashboard best practices. And then you put that in there. But then, like, I work within, let's say I'm a hospital, right? So then I would say create create a skill on healthcare IT best practices as it would relate to the technology that I'm going to implement in this stack. So then it would create a skill for that. And then I would say, I'm also using Confluence and I want them to talk to each other. So create a skill for Confluence and be sure to include Jira integration. And every single thing that I need to know to build the best dashboard is a skill that I would create. And skills allow for something called, I believe, progressive disclosure. So instead of having a giant Claude.md file like you currently see in DBA tools, that already fills up so much of the memory and context. But with skills, it's actually, so it'll be like, oh, right now I need to know about Jira. So it uses that small amount. Well, I don't need to know all about Jira. I need to know about creating tasks. So then it goes to that skill. So it has pinpoint accuracy and it's able to teach itself for every single session. And I actually created a DBA tool skill. that I want to share for everyone. And with that, like what it did was it took each of the categories and it says, this is how you back up in this instance. This is how you test backups. This is how you do all of that, right? And then I just learned about hooks, which are really exciting because I'd heard about them so much. And a hook, so a skill in Claude.md, that's a suggestion. And Claude doesn't necessarily follow the instructions, right? Because it's like, well, whatever. But hooks actually enforce it. So if I say you can never use backticks, you always have to splat, then the hook will stop it if it's created backticks and it'll rewrite it as a splat and then it's allowed. So I think that's where a lot of AI safety is going to come from in the future. It's very possible, to answer your question, that when we go and we get these data sets, that before writing, there's a hook that literally says to check for the things that it's supposed to. Thank you for the question. I just
Beautiful.
worked all of that out.
No, a beautiful answer. That makes so much sense.
This
Did
was
y'all like? Oh, sorry. Go on.
no, I was gonna say this has been fantastic. Just want to be conscious of everyone's time because we are past, but this has been amazing. We have been recording this, so we will be posting it. So if people miss things, we can share it and do it later and watch it again because there was a lot of good stuff, and it was really great to see how you were combining AI with something very practical like creating a website for different things. So it's always great to see how people are using it and how it's been helpful since we have to. I hate saying the phrase AI all the things. So thank you so much for your presentation.
I like that.
That's how I feel, but it's a good thing. And we want to thank everyone who's been here watching and hanging out with us. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to Chrissy, or if you need help directing towards her,